So, it's gonna happen. Those people who think that they can avoid that are just kidding themselves. What they're doing is they don't remember what happened to them. They lose their memory when it comes off. Well, let's not talk too much about that. Chili and potato soup and some, what was supposed to be chicken and dumpling at more than something else. What was that? Chicken stuff, shred over biscuits. At the creative, what was that stuff, the chicken stuff that we served over biscuits, what would you call that?
Jeez, I don't know. Chicken stew, I guess, or those like chicken on cream.
It started out in dumplings and then it evolved into something
It
else.
was good, it was creamy.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
So, but anyways, then we had hot dog and a fried pig.
All right, so we are waiting for our featured poets to arrive. I don't know where the hell they are. I know roundabout when they said they're gonna be here. So we're gonna get started anyway, because we have to get rolling at some point. So I have asked Jason to start us off with some poems. Read as many as you like, because I don't know where they are. And so he graciously accepted. And so without further ado, Jason Reberg is going to read some poems.
I'm like filler. I'm filler.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, I'm like filler in a hot dog.
But you, sir, are good looking filler.
Yeah, well.
Like a Nathan's. You're like a Nathan's hot dog.
Are you ready to read, sir? We need a reader.
Ready to read?
Yeah.
I can read something.
Get on the list, pal.
Oh boy. Did you bring those? No, I just wandered in. I
Well, come on in, have a seat, man, have a seat. All right.
I'm afraid you can't escape now. So I just
quietly last year.
that back door is locked. That door's locked.
Hotel California is a real thing.
Yes. Who would have thunk?
Your best in terms of Tony's camera?
My best angle, my best side.
Right here.
Yeah. Okay.
More to your left.
Are you actually back there?
Yes, more to your left.
So like
There is literally a man behind the curtain.
it's like the Wizard of Oz. It really is. Okay.
And again, read as many as you like.
Okay then. More even.
You're walking in front of that page. You know, there's two cameras that flip
Yeah.
back and forth.
Go out on the street.
Just a little more. A little more. How's this?
Great.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out on this increasingly chilly evening. I was losing sensation in my toes down at the bookstore. It's just called Sometimes the Moon is Nothing More Than the Moon. Sometimes the moon comes down if she happens to be in town from her royal couch of clouds to drink with us, my shadow and me, when no one else will. Sometimes the moon rings like a temple bell on a cold night, signaling the beginning or end of something important, and radiates with a halo of steam like a luminous ball of dry ice. Sometimes the moon is a curved dagger that some Bedouin bandit prince might have carried in the blue and grainy late show of my childhood dreams. Sometimes the moon is a white rose that drunken fools inevitably try to shoot arrows and poems at, knowing full well that both return to earth with potentially dangerous results. Sometimes the moon is a pallid face peering in at us through a winter window scene while the radio begins to glow with a moody Ellington indigo. And a car down the street is struggling to clear the early frost from its throat. Sometimes the moon is a cop's flashlight cutting a cautious path through film noir ghosts of gutter steam. Sometimes the moon is a 60-watt bulb shining from the back porch out into the sweaty, firefly-choked backyard jungle nights of long ago. Sometimes the moon is a guard tower spot always trying to catch us with its magic circle whenever we make our midnight raids over the walls into the garden of earthly delights. Sometimes the moon is a silver dollar that's been sheared in two by a dull and rusty pair of tin snips. Sometimes the moon is a shiny dime flattened on a railroad track in which, if one looks just right, a semblance of Roosevelt's confident and reassuring smirk can still be seen. Sometimes the moon is a fat, blue, androgynous Buddha, grinning out at the universe in every direction at once. Sometimes the moon is a single bright eye of a dark god of the ancient world, peering down at us through a hole torn in the top of a circus tent of clouds, or up from an inversely alternate underworld through the dimensional portal of a swollen, marshy pond. Sometimes the moon is nothing more than the moon. Nah, that's never true. More filler, sir. More rat lips and assholes. The poetic equivalent of, thank you. This is called What Else to Do, maybe. Don't, what are you doing?
I'm moving the
Never,
camera.
never try to upstage me. What
What's that?
do I gotta get clothes on it?
Well, you know, when I was seeing individual hairs follicles
my
on your
brother-
face, you were a
my
little
brother-
close to the camera.
My blackheads. It's the problem with that new HD thing, man. You can see people's, like, not only the makeup, but like their acne. I'm so sorry. Can I go?
Go.
Oh, okay. What else to do? Night and the first few tentative drops of a much needed and long prayed for summer rain going plit, plit, plit. Down through the trees, many cross-hatched layers of branches and leaves to the summer hot sidewalk below. The trees like tattered beach umbrellas sprouting here and there along the banks of this lazy river of newly laid tarmac. A shy ghost in the attic window across the street. Tiny voices in the wind and grass whispering choruses of praise each to the grand schemata of peoples, places, things, the microcosmic minutiae of it all, and all other various originators of little and large moments of deep enlightenment in between. And here I am. Again, it seems, legs in faux lotus position at the epicenter of who knows how many known, unknown, and very possibly unknowable spheres and ellipses of influence. What else to do then? But raise my pint bottle up to the grinning blue Buddha moon to catch a view of him through the brandy's amber luminescence and the streaming cinemascopic projection of clouds against the sky, and salute his blissed out and otherworldly magnificence. My skeleton is an aching abstract construct. My heart is an old abandoned country church. My mind is a flickering streetlight at the heart of a feathery flurry of poems that may never be finished. Applause light up there just out of shot.
Damn it, Jason, you're special.
Yes, and people
You
like
look
me.
good in the hats.
Yeah, and people like me.
You need me to keep it going?
No, don't worry. Treehouse fallen in the backwoods. Kind of a curious thing to come upon a fallen treehouse all of a sudden in the deep Missouri backwoods. Somewhere in that hazy, nebulous neutral zone between north and south, noon and sundown, one of those classic contemplative moments you might assume that the universe randomly puts in our paths from time to time. No other signs of civilization or human activity of any kind for miles. No reason one would even wildly speculate that a person could stumble upon such a scene in an otherwise still reasonably untouched and primeval forest setting like this. No hoary, haggard old man of the mountains or prancing Tom Bombadil-like character to suddenly appear and tell us how they've been here from the beginning, how they've seen everything that's come and gone in these parts since God was a baby. No one who might have actually borne witness at that fateful moment of entropic dissolution in the endless looping chain of fateful moments that is this life of ours. No one to answer what you could safely assume would be the most obvious and pressing question that would naturally come to one's mind upon stumbling across a treehouse fallen in the backwoods.
I mean, you're reading tomorrow anyway. What time is that tomorrow?
Maybe. What? I thought it was creeping.
Not this time. I think Dunaway's is 7 now.
Okay. This is brand new from River Dog Press by John Dorsey and Victor Clevenger, their press, and it just came out.
And it really is some of the best work they've done. I really love the stuff that's in there.
That's good because I ripped off most of it. So,
Well, that's the best way.
yeah, as T.S. Eliot said. It's called Fence Post Blues. It's blue, and that was Arlo Guthrie too, I think. That I did rip that off at least. This is called Peonies. Two old black leather biker boots as rough and cracked as 40 miles of bad Kansas tarmac. Their biking days long over and gone, now spend their time on the front porch watching the world roll by. But now without always feeling that primal pull to try to outrun it. Swapping the same old tall and tired tales of glory, sprouting bright peonies of laughter out into the wild air from down in the rich, storied soil at the depths of their souls. This is called Speeding Across the State of Kansas. I do not condone drinking, drug using, or driving. But there are few things as fine as speeding across the state of Kansas on a brisk and shiny day in mid-February, jacked up on just the right amount of weed, whiskey, and espresso, with the Stones Exiles on Main Street cranked up to that sweet, magic maximum density spot with the pace of the car, the music and volume and vibrations coming from the speakers and the road and aforementioned chemical array somehow all seem to fuse the moment together into one groovy beat machine, moving down the highway as if propelled by combined energies of Charlie Watts, Bill Wyman, and Mick Taylor themselves, leaving the rest of us to holler, hoot, and harmonize along as best as we can. Still holding. The world is a big Andrew Wyeth painting this morning. Through the bay window in the main room of my friend's house here in Missouri, overlooking this winding two-lane highway and the deep bowl of the valley on the other side, with perfectly placed house and barn and various appropriate farm implements of one kind or another scattered about, here and there on the gradual rise of the opposing hill, where a few spindly old trees still hold the high ground after all this time. And this is called stopping to take a piss on a cross-country trek after being tailed by a cop for the last 10 miles. This hot night, beside a country road that runs roughly parallel to the Missouri River, leaning against the car under the light of countless stars and listening to Sam and Dave on the radio, passing what's left of a bottle of Old Crow back and forth after a day of truck stop coffee and now only 20 miles to go. So you just zen out and dial down a little. Sometimes when the universe says pull over, you do it. Thank you.
I was gonna ask you, Jason, is that thing, I was gonna make an announcement, is the thing in Columbia happening? Is that a done deal? That thing
I
that's.
don't know yet.
Okay, well,
Hopefully.
save the info on that. All right, does anyone not on this list that would like to be on this list? All right. What's that?
I'll be on the list.
I think that you are, John, unless this is an old one. Oh, I guess it's an old one I'm looking at, so you're on there.
That must be an old list.
This is my handwriting, I didn't write it.
I just assumed it was the current one, but that's me. What I will say before we go into the next reader is that I decided today that our next open mic event is going to be January 20th. I figured that's pretty memorable since that's usually Inauguration Day, or that's like State of the Union Day. It's like Poetry State of the Union Day. So January 20th, we're going to have an open mic here in the art gallery at 6 o'clock. I am not planning a feature for that day. It's the only month during 2024 where I'm not. If anybody knows anybody who wants to do it, I'm okay with it, but I'm just planning it as a straight open mic. So January 20th, be here. And so with that, I will say that I'm just going to call up Ken Gerke. Ken.
Okay.
You stand right there, Ken. You don't want Tony's iron.
He's gonna say, to
Okay,
the
so-
right, to the left.
A week ago today was 30 years since my father died, and so I wrote something on that day. Never forgotten. See him before you. Let me start over. Never forgotten. See him before you knew him. In black and white at 19, leaning on a car fender as he looks under the hood. Again at 20, at the brink of Niagara Falls, holding a swaddled bundle in the dead of winter. And again, in grainy 8mm, usually behind the camera, this time smiling in his chance to be the one hamming it up. Slides from the 60s and 70s, so many places visited, people known as family and friends. In videos, his new home movies, hear his voice coaxing grandchildren to share their experience. Hold a proud union member's dues book from the 50s, stamp smartly each monthly payment, then hold his retiree's card. Cherish a gold pocket watch, his father's, then his, now yours. Feel his tools, wrenches, sockets, hammers, some smooth with wear. His bandsaw, grinder, drill press, all waiting for his touch. Absent for 30 years now. None of these will bring him back, but they will stir memories, especially today. Thank you. And I'm going to do Shifting shroud. Morning's damp river companion, deceptively serene, mutes, silently shifts, shapes, and sounds. Light diffused, images confused, concealing, revealing visions real, imagined. Echoes absent, distortion in direction, shrouded sounds surrounding a seeming silence. Reality returns with rising sun, tendrils, fingers, wisps, withdraw with morning air. Thank you. And I'm going to close with two of my random riffs. So, Ron Carter had an album titled Peg Leg, and there was a track on that called Peg Leg. And when Bonnie and I were driving to Wyoming, we sort of just past halfway, we stopped at North Platte out overnight, and there was a brewery called Peg Leg. So I worked the music in with it. Okay, Peg Leg. With Lincoln in the rear view and Casper well north of us, the monotony of heading straight west across Nebraska plains lets my mind stray further down the road to concerns about our destination. An empty house in windswept Wyoming with no life left to it, or just enough to cast a pall over these blue skies. As we approach North Platte, Peg Leg starts coming over the speakers with guitar and piano, almost as one voice coaxing the drums. And they don't stop when Ron Carter comes in with his piccolo bass, because now all of them are dancing and that bass is singing. Our hotel is just 2 miles straight off the interstate, but when the piano takes the lead, I'll make a hard right as soon as we exit. It's like this combo knows that Peg Leg Brewing is right down the road, a place with great beer and the same positive vibe, where the brewer turns a handicap into an asset, with the prosthetics he's worn through life, shoes and all, hanging from the ceiling. I let that piano play out and soak in more of the bass as it dances its way to the end before we walk into the pub. Just being there, timed perfectly with music that's full of life, tells me that things aren't all bad. We'll head out in the morning, and I'll make sure that Peg Leg is playing when we pull into Casper. And I just wrote this yesterday, the day before coming back from the doctor's, actually, listening to some Miles Davis, A Kind of Blue. There's a track that's called All Blues. So, All Blues. As I leave my doctor's office and head south out of Columbia, I hear a backbeat joined by light piano and sax, a surge that could be my heart responding to the news. The sky can't decide if it wants to be pale azure or white clouds threaded with gray as I pass December bare trees and brown-tinged cedars that offer no relief. That beat beneath him, Miles moves in on trumpet, forlorn, as I consider the thought of more labs, more medication, stress taking its toll. And still, that heartbeat as trumpet gives way to sax, Adderley and Coltrane, trading notes high and low, pulling me out of and back into the blues. The piano moves up from the back, almost struggling to bring some light into the story. But at this point, it's all blues. The trumpet returns just as forlorn, as if telling me to do something about this, then fades with that percussive beat that could be my heart.
What's that?
I said nothing. See?
Leave that for a second. Now, see, I'm gonna line up.
That's me and that X tape.
That's true. Like it needs to be.
Best boy or gaffer?
What's
Is
that?
that best boy or
It's
gaffer?
like gaffer. I usually like the gaffer tape. I'm not entirely sure. Well, the best boy's like a boom mic operator.
Okay.
Sort of more like that. But all right. So moving on, moving forward. I am just going to call up John Clayton. John, would you like me to bring a chair over here for you? Do you want to be on camera?
Yeah, that'd be great. It kind of, I'm inspired by the mirror in the bathroom, but when you stand in front of it, you can only see your hands and from your waist down, unless you're sitting on the stool.
John, this is an arts agency.
I just wondered if that was intentional.
That is absolutely intentional.
That's
right. That's why it's pointing there.
I just imagine Tony being like, no, you screwed it up again.
The first piece I want to do is called Forgiveness. When the hospitalist said she was dying, when he told her she would not live a month, her eyes flashed anger, let go of my hand, turned her back to me, would not talk to me for a day. I knew she thought I knew, and kept her in the dark. This from a woman who asked, does this dress make me look fat? And then said, do you always have to be so damn honest? She only punished me for a day with silence for something I had not done. She was always quick to forgive. Thank you. This piece is going to be my veteran's piece. It's about a vet who is old, like I am now. It's called The Watcher. Now he sits on the deck of his double wide and watches. He's always been a watcher, always. 50 years ago, he watched and listened from the perimeter guard tower. He watched for movement and listened for unnatural night sounds. He was a watcher. But with that M60, he was also a doer. He didn't talk much, but everybody knew he was a doer and respected his ability to be a doer. He remembers, but doesn't talk about it. Back in the world, he continued to be a watcher. He watched for smoke. He watched for wind direction. He watched for how the clouds moved. He sniffed the air for the smell of wood smoke. He rode the Kootenai National Forest, the Flathead National Forest, and the Gallatin National Forest on horseback with pack horses, watching, 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 watching for fungus, watching for root rot, watching for canker, for smoke, always watching for smoke, always watching for smoke, watching for grizzly sign, watching for wolf sign, watching, watching, always watching. He spent 40 years watching. He never bragged or talked much, but everyone knew he was a doer and respected his ability to be a doer. He remembers that, but doesn't talk about it. 3 strokes later, he sits on the deck of his double wide and stares at the Swan Range and watches for cloud formations, watches for wind direction, watches for wind speed, and sniffs the air for wood smoke. The American flag flies from the left corner of his deck, and the POWMIA flag flies from the right corner of his deck. He sits between the flags and watches. He doesn't talk much. He's always been a watcher, always. Thank you.
When is the next veterans book? When does that come out? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I thought you might know, but I wasn't sure.
Well, Jason and Ed and I have been talked a little bit about it. We're going to have to recruit recruit some people, have another anthology.
I knew it was in the planning stage.
This is the political season, and we're seeing some of the very same things we saw 4 years ago coming up. But this probably is a protest poem, Jason. It's called The Tombstone and Monument. It's kind of about the wall that Mexico didn't pay for. The giant wall from sea to shining sea. If built, it will be a tombstone and a monument. A tombstone for the idea of America. A tombstone marking the death of the idea that there is a place where the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free can come and make a life. Speak freely without fear of retribution. Practice their religion, any religion, without fear of harm to their family. A place where the color of their skin or their ethnicity will not give a license for their lynching or their home being burned. A place where they will not be gunned down simply because the God they pray to is different than their neighbors. A place where citizens understand that patriotism is not the same as nationalism. A place where the pain of hunger is unacceptable. A place where even the poor get medical care. A place where no one has to sleep outside in the cold. A place where the idea of America is real. A monument to division. A monument to racism. A monument to misogyny. A monument to fascism. A monument to punishing the right people. Those who are different in color, different in economic class, different in educational level, different in customs, different in religion, different in sexual orientation, different in political belief, different because they are fat, different because they are too skinny, or too tall, or too short, different because they are, well, just different. A monument to dividing families, a monument to dividing Native American communities, a monument to dividing the wildlife gene pools, a monument to dividing botanical gene pools. Tombstone and monument, a wall from sea to shining sea, is not about protection or safety or the greater good. It is about the meanest and basest of human instincts. A wall will not long endure. Cosmic forces and humankind will tear it down and make a road for the better angels of humankind to travel. That's right, tear it down. Tear it down. Thank you. I want to do this one for Mark. It's about a Florida bar. It's called the Fisherman's Shack. Sits at the end of the canal under a stand of gnarly black oak trees. Looks like chicken coops pulled together, says my pal. People get so drunk in here they walk on their knees. This place is really the pits. Dave likes it because Shelby has big tits. Craig and Donnie are supposed to be here, but they won't come, never fear. The boardwalk on the way in is squishy and a little weak. It's dark inside, so watch your feet. This place is really a dump. Everything in here is 100% junk. Climb on a bar stool, hear the clack of men playing pool. Shelby swinging beer in this place, and has a menacing snarl on her face. West Virginia on the next bar stool tries to flirt, but doesn't have the tools. He gets a negative response instead. Says she, you're an inbred. No, I ain't, I'm smarter than that. Shelby got the response she wanted and smirks like a cat. She's just mad, her tips have been bad. Sure enough, Craig and Donnie never do show. Dave's friend Jay is slamming beers like he has to go. As long as you're buying and the beer is free, Jay'll keep drinking, no time to pee. Youngman, Bush, Miller Lite, I think Shelby wants to fight. Oh good, it's 5 o'clock, her shift ends. Here comes Tricia, her work begins. There's an alligator on the ceiling walking around with a mannequin head and his mouth facing down. 2 black-tipped sharks hanging from monofilament line, resting a hand and foot on which they dine. Damn, I forgot to smoke. So thick it makes you choke. The haze is not purple, it's definitely blue. Can you smell an ashtray? That will be you. There's entertainment, a jukebox machine. Damn, this place is dirty. It has never been clean. There's a dude fingering a guitar who looks really high. Better hit the bathroom before I say bye. One door says gulls, the other says buoys. The smell when you open the door tells you where you're at. I'll be glad to get out of here. I'll say that. Thank you. Have you been there, Mark?
With you many times. Every time you read it, I love it. I think about Don too. Thank you.
Now, why would you think of Mark?
I don't know, it just
Thank you.
Well, what I am going to do is go run to that table and read a few poems myself from whatever I have over there and cover a little bit of time. And if no one's here after that, we'll take a break.
John, can you give me a minute or two?
What's that?
Can you give me a minute or two?
I can give you a minute or two right now.
All of you, we want to thank all of you for being here. We consider all of you part of the family. You're dear friends. I've been in this art game for almost 3 decades, and this is sometimes how it is. Plan and plan and plan, and sometimes it just doesn't go the way you want it to. But it gives me a moment of pause to think about how successful 2023 has been. Most of you have been here for most all the programming. I want to celebrate the opportunity that we've had to have these, just a long list of creatives from all over the country come here to the bookstore, creatives from middle of Missouri to be here in the family and share the work. And then the wonderful flexibility that we have to be in this space, be a little warm, and just to take a pause and say, it's been a really good year. And then also I want to honor Laura Bigger, who has given us this wonderful backdrop tonight to celebrate her work and her participation in this event. Her work will be up until pretty much the end of March, so she'll be around. So I wanted to say thank you, Laura, for that. I also want to thank John Dorsey for doing what he does every single event that we have, and we can't give you enough thanks, John, for doing this. And I want to take that another moment to pause and give a little light to 2024, because we're right at that moment. John started to just talk about what's going to happen in January and beyond, and he's just teasing us a little bit because he's a beast and he really does, I think, have the entire, a lot of the year already planned out, which is amazing. But also, Bernadette's here, Belle, and Bernadette is one of the artists that has been involved with OAC for about 2 years. She represents an entirely different discipline. She's performing arts. She's a singer-songwriter. And they have taken on a collaboration with OAC. And if you didn't know it, we have another building that's 2 blocks from here, which we call the Warehouse. And that space has a big stage on it. Some of the old-time poets that have been here for a little while, we've had 2 poetry festivals in that space in the last 6-7 years. And we'll use that. It's really fair weather too. It's like the bookstore. It's a little bit fair weather. But I really want to talk about performing arts, specifically music. And Beltana was able to, just since September 1st, have 5 events, musical events here in Belle, Missouri, just since September, which is fantastic for this community. It's a different whole different platform than what we're doing here. But I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to say that right now working, we're probably going to have they're scheduling a New Year's Eve event here. It's not a New Year's Eve party. It's not that. It's probably going to just be a 6 to 8-ish musical performance, and then there's another one, the 6th, 8th, 5th of January. So that doesn't get on the Barb Books calendar. That's on a platform called OAC, Performing Arts Series. And that's another whole thing that we do in addition to this space, which is the Osage Arts Community Arts Center. So I just wanted to give you a little teaser, but there's going to be every month 1 or 2 performances in Belle, Missouri that are over there at the warehouse. We've had them, Krista and Lewis were here July, August in the bookstore, and some of you may have seen them or been there for that. But I just wanted to let you know that we are really venturing hard into performing arts, into the music in 2024. And that's we're really celebrating that really hard. So we're gonna start talking more about that, the open mics, about, hey, this is also coming up. So it's a little crazy because like right now we're in a gallery, and this is the visual arts, and this is open again until March. And we have literary arts, which is happening, and then we have performing arts. So there's a lot more going on for 2024 in Belle, Missouri. So that's really, really exciting. And again, we'll talk more about that in time. But and anytime, Beltana, if you want to just jump in and say what's on the menu, you're more than welcome, because John will give you some airtime. But I just wanted to say that. And John, before we leave, if you can give us a little teaser about what's going to happen in 24 before we end tonight, that would be great, because our group really spreads the word to the community.
Sure. I mean, I could talk about some select things. There are things I'm still fleshing out. There's some things I know more about than others. I can tell you this is just far out into 24, June of 24, Abraham Smith, who is signed to Jack White from the White Stripes, his publishing company, Third Man Books, he's going to be reading here at Belle. And he's wonderful. He did a full-length poem, like it's a whole book about Hank Williams Sr. called Hank. That is just, he's spellbinding, and so I'm going to be on the highway with him for a week. He and Justin Ham, and so at some point the three of us will be here in Belle. That week that we're going to be on the road is June 3rd to the 9th. So one of those days we will be here. I'm trying to figure out what day that is. But that's probably the thing I'm most excited about right now. But Mark's right to say that I have an idea of what the year's going to look like. I just need to confirm a lot of things. But, yeah.
And do what you always do, get us young voices, get us new talent that you've heard of, to either performing arts or visual or literary arts, and we'll do our best to get them here in Belle so that we can enjoy them as a group, but also we can invite more people into our fold. So thanks, John.
All right. Since we are still waiting, I will read a few poems myself. I did not intend to, but I will. Oh, I read this. There was a group that came to this gallery years ago that they were a big agricultural group. I don't know if it was 4-H. Do you remember, Mark? There were some older folks. We had about 60 people come in. And
that was an agricultural tour for Osage County.
Okay.
I believe it was organized by Legends Bank, and they just did like a kind of a retirees regional tour. They go to Mukau Cheese, I think in Owensville, but they came through here too.
I just remember that being a really good day, and I couldn't remember the exact group of people, but they were really cool. And since they were an ag group, I read this poem. It's a funny poem, but it's a true story too. I'll preface it. When I was in school, when I was in high school, and I actually had known this guy my whole life, there was a kid who was legally blind, but he still wanted to go hunt deer. And so he got rejected for a hunting license, and so he took his dad's rifle and he went out anyway. And the result of that trip is this poem. So it's this poem called The Deer Hunter. In Greensburg, every boy dreamt of getting a hunting license by the age of 12, talking about pickup trucks, shell casings, and what sort of antlers they wanted to have hanging on the wall in their parents' basement. Pat was legally blind at birth, but wanted to be the pride of his moose lodge just like everyone else. Turned down flat after an eye exam, he waited until after dark before going into the closet to find his father's favorite rifle and headed out into the woods. After a few hours spent freezing his ass off and faded camouflage cutoffs, he heard something coming toward him and fired rapidly into the night. As the sun came up, he struggled to push a dying cow across several fields to his house, thinking the whole time that he had bagged the biggest deer in the county. After his father was forced to pay an angry farmer $800, he never heard the end of it. When he got engaged years later, someone said, "Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?" He just winced, saying that even milk ran down his lips like blood. I shouldn't have been prejudged people automatically, because I thought that agricultural group was going to be like, "Oh, we hate this guy." They loved it. So, I don't know. My mom is super religious, and just, I think it was this morning, I was talking to Jason after this, she was telling me, I was telling her about a friend of mine who's probably dying of cancer in about 2 or 3 months. And so she was telling me, "Oh, well, you never know, you can just pray that away." And I don't know, it got me upset. But this is one of the experiences I had dealing with her beliefs. And I share some of them. I'm not completely out of that realm. She's a bit overzealous is all. But this is about the time she took me to a Billy Graham crusade in an old baseball stadium. It's called The Nosebleed Seats in Heaven. In the 9th grade, my mother forced my younger brother and I to go to a Billy Graham crusade at the old Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh, where instead of having us run the bases around the diamond, he preached love mixed with bigotry and more than a teaspoon of hellfire and brimstone, pleading for all of the sinners to come forward for a laying of hands right there across home plate. He threw out his slider, his breaking ball, without ever curving his lips. He said, "In heaven there are no bad seats, and the foam fingers always form an olive branch." There in that decaying monument to the human spirit, where just a few years later I would be offered a toothless blowjob by a 48-year-old meth head at my first Rolling Stones concert. Billy taught me a thing or two about swagger before Mick or Keith ever got the chance. In heaven, you just have to know how to strut like a little red rooster. That's what he taught me, while laying one hand across my pimple-covered forehead, taking away my sins with a few choice lyrics of his own. Poem that probably won't mean a whole hell of a lot to anyone else. But when I started reading poems, I read at a place called the Teatro Cafe, which is outside of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, and they were a safe haven for young people. And they changed my life, probably ruined my life because I didn't go on and become an accountant or something sensible. But like in our town back then, the police, if they spotted kids on the street, they just scoop you up just for standing there. And the owner of that place was such a great person. And he actually went to high school with Jerry Garcia, and I got to meet Jerry Garcia once before he died because of this guy, and it's a really kind of funny little story, but this is just about the last night at his coffee house. This is called The Last Night at Teatro, and it's just sort of a list poem. Annie Richardson strummed a blue guitar in the doorway, and I worked feverishly on another bad poem that would never open her heart. And David Laws rapped about philosophy with Catholic schoolgirls who thought he was the second coming of something less holy than their crucifix. And Jenny made jewelry out of chicken bones before going to her job at the mall. And Steve talked about politics in Ireland. And Chris made everyone smile. And Henry and Bud thought about better days. And Dan talked to Linda about going to high school with Jerry Garcia. And remembered exactly why he had opened this place. And Frank sang Hey Jude in Spanish. And Chad joined in on air guitar. And Clowney lived up to his name. And Adam and Marty talked about going on tour. And Molly and Sarah Ann sang Silent Night with snowflakes pressed to their tongues, and we all had a moment of silence for a world that would cease to exist the second we went out that door. That's just a personal poem, but I'll read two more poems and then we'll take a break unless I hear from someone. This is sort of about, I knew a homeless guy in Philadelphia when I lived there for 8 years, and he would not take change. You had to give paper money, or like he would toss it back at you. And his name was Tyrone. He was a really great guy. I got to know him really well. I always try to give him at least $1, but this is called Hucks River, Philadelphia. I used to watch as Tyrone hustled every inch of the pavement between the Latimer Deli and McGlinchey's bar, strutting as if he rolled the sidewalk like the conquerors of old, on the streets since just after his 18th birthday, because he lacked the proper identification needed to click his heels back to some Kansas cornfield that his family had settled in, as he put it, just after the shackles had come off of history. The closest he ever got now was watching as the barley and hops floated around the top of his flat 40-ounce hurricane, like Mark Twain's corpse searching for a beacon on the delta. As I handed him a crumpled dollar bill, he told me, "This is Hucks River." He was just trying not to drown in it. This poem, but it's slightly risque by my standards.
Oh.
But, all right. I will read this because Jason and I had a conversation about like people that are Sikh. I talked about the guy who used to sing in the bar when he would get drunk. And this guy's name, his name was Sing Song. And ironically, if you got him drunk enough, he would just sing in the bar. And until people used to yell to toss him out. And the poem is just called Sing's Song. Singh had been called a Hindu, an Arab, a towelhead, a terrorist, decades before the Twin Towers ever quivered and collapsed onto the pavement and into the pages of history. He had been born in the streets of Fresno, driving a cab, almost before he could walk. A Sikh, he followed Guru to Center City, Philadelphia, in search of true human equality, while the rest of the world followed Ronald Reagan through Death Valley days and beyond. He would walk into Dirty Frank's on the corner of Pine Street and start singing after a single beer, as the patrons groaned and threatened to fight him on the sidewalk outside at 3 in the afternoon. He would plead with the bartender just to let him stay for one more song on the jukebox, and somehow Sarah came out, "Cheryl, I love you," after someone had left a weathered Cheryl Teague's calendar on the back seat of his jitney in 1987, as his face filled with tears, because he knew equality was too much to ask for on a sunny day in a world where happy hour rarely comes for anyone. My phone has been making sounds.
Help, we're lost in the woods.
Yeah, we will see where these folks are right now. And I will give you a live report of the internet.
You did warn them about the meth cannibal hillbillies.
The meth can will
Do not go out on Highway D after sundown. If ever you do.
Okay, I have no idea yet, so we are going to take a break. I'll figure this out. Thank you guys. We'll be back in about 10 minutes at the very least to close up the evening. So I gotta figure this out here.
street all night.
John, there's more people on the open mic scared than you.
That's how it is with artists still.
January 20th, though, I will see you guys again. I apologize.
No?
Tony,